All right, so we have set up our two constructors. One constructor does not take any values, and the other constructor takes two values. The constructor that doesn't take any values we will refer to as our default constructor. This just gives default values to our x and y's. The one that does take values gives values to the x and y's. So, for example, I could call this constructor and send over 5 and 10. What would these be equal to if I did that? X would be equal to 5, y would be equal to 10. Simple as that. Now, let's make a method, which you guys are familiar with, that prints these values. So it's really simple. Let's just type public void print values, and it doesn't take any arguments. Great, we've got a method in here. So what do we do with this? Let's type system.println x colon x value plus, and then let's do y plus y. All right, so what this will print out is something like this. Something along the lines of that. That's what it should look like. So this is what is so great about object-oriented programming, is you can create a bunch of objects with a bunch of different values. So let's put this to work. I'm going to switch back over to my main class, which we created right here. And I'm going to create a point object. So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to type point, and then let's name this P equals new point, and I'm going to use the default constructor. So then let's do this. Let's type P dot, and it should autocomplete if you see print values down here. Let's click that. So what do you think this will print? I'll leave that up to you, and then we can go over it once we do it. After that, I want to make another one. I want to make a point B and set it equal to a new point, but this time I'm going to pass in two values. Let's pass in 10 and 24. Alrighty, and then let's type b dot print values. Alright, so you can take your guesses as to what this will print. I'm sure you already know it. If you don't, that's okay. We'll figure it out. So let's take a look. Let's run this program. It says save and launch. Press OK. And we can take a look in the console. You see that it printed x0, y0, and then it printed x10, y24. So why did this happen? Well, first of all, we created our object, which is called point P, and we set it equal to a new point. So what did this do in our point class? Let's switch back over. It ran through here. It saw public point because we didn't have any arguments, and it set x to 0 and it set y to 0. And then we called the print method, which simply printed those two values. So let's go back to main. And what happened when we added constructed values and arguments? Created a new point, named it b, and we set it equal to 10 and 24. So what happened is it went to the point class. It saw that we had two arguments. We had x and y. So it set x to 10, which is what we passed over, and y to 24. And then it printed those values because we called the print method. All right. And so that is what's so cool about object-oriented programming. Now let me show you something that's efficient about this. Let's create a for loop. Let's do for int I equals 0. I is greater than 30. And then let's do I plus plus. So you already know what a for loop is, so I'm not going to explain it. If you'd like to, you can go look back and check it out. But we're going to create a for loop, and we're going to create 30 points, and we're going to print their values. So let's do it this way. Let's type point x equals new point, and we will construct it with the values of I and I. So if this was at 1, it would construct the point with 1 and 1. And then let's do this. Let's do x dot print values. Alrighty, so let's delete this right here, up here. And now we just have the for loop. So let's go ahead and run this. Save the resources. And it's going to take a while to run. It should take, apparently, only 30 runs. And then we can see what it prints out. So let's give it a second. Oh, let me just check something out really quickly. All right, here we go. So what I did was I switched this around because you just need to switch this sign, and that should work. All right, so here's what we have. We can take a look. We have x0, y0, x1, y2, x2, y2, x3, y3, etc. And it goes all the way down to 29. And that's good because it created 30 points. So that's what's great about object-oriented programming, is that it can create automation like this. If we didn't have this, we would end up doing some weird wonky way to make this happen. And it's so much simpler just to do this design. And once you have that, you're good to go. So I want to do one quick last thing. We're going to create another method, and we're going to name it multiply. So let's do public void multiply, no arguments. And remember, this is in the point class. So all we're going to do is set, and we are also going to create a new number. We are going to create int total. And what we're going to do is we're going to set total equal to x times y. And then once we have that, we will be good. And let's do system.println multiply plus total. So let's check out what this does. Let's go to main and let's do this. Let's create a new point. Let's name it x and let's set it equal to a new point. We will pass in the values 10 and 5. Now let's do x.multiply, and there we go. So what do you think this will print out? All right, well, let's double check. Let's go ahead and run this. And you see that it printed out 50, because obviously 10 times 5 is 50. And that is it right now for this introduction to object-oriented programming. We've gone over quite a bit, so I'm sorry if you need some time to understand this. That's completely okay. Take your time. But basically, just remember, it's kind of like having an actual object, and this is how I use it to describe it. You can have any type of object. Let's say you have a soda can. You have a soda can object. What's inside that soda can? So to make a soda can, we would make a soda can class, right? For example, let's say we replace this with soda. What would these values be? Imagine if x was amount of liquid, y was brand, and total was can color. So we could have can color set to red, brand set to Coca-Cola, and amount set to 1 liter, right? So that's what's interesting about the soda can. So we could make it so that we can make 1 million soda cans, all with different values using a randomizer. But if we didn't have this object, we would have to manually find a way to make 1 million soda cans manually. And that is what's very annoying about not having object-oriented programming. And that is why I'm showing you how to do this. So we'll get into more about that later, and we will be focusing on recursion soon enough. But as of now, that is it for today, and I'll see you in the next one.